She paid and was handed a bag of food and a box of drinks. She turned to find 2 men and the woman from the bar down the street. They were draped over each other as they came up the hill, laughing and snorting loudly as they passed a flask between them. Fawn sniffed as she watched them wobble back and forth, knowing that if she dawdled any longer, she was sure to miss the last bus. Standing in the light of the establishment, she was sure they would see her at any moment. "You fucking dyke," a man said, trying to keep his drunk girlfriend on her feet. The man that had tried to get Fawn to join their little group followed them with his head down. At least someone was embarrassed. Fawn crossed to their side of the street, knowing she'd already missed the last bus. But suddenly she felt the need to stretch her legs. "You on your way to the wife's house, rug muncher?" "Fucking dyke," the man said, trudging along, half carrying his girlfriend. "Tough talk for a dodger," Fawn said. "Shut the fuck up, I'm no dodger," he said. Fawn let go of a slight chuckle before the man pulled his arm away from his girlfriend, letting her collapse in the street. He turned to Fawn with his lips pulled back to his gums. His friend stopped and scanned the street for onlookers, blubbering weak commands for his friend to stop. "What?" Fawn said, still holding her bags, hoping he would, wishing he would. The angry man huffed loudly and then returned to his girlfriend, failing at picking herself off of the sidewalk. "Exactly," Fawn said. "Coward." The man immediately whirled around, swinging hard. His open palm found nothing but air. His girlfriend, now without support, fell to the ground again. Fawn had ducked under the man's attack completely. She set her bags down and launched herself up in one continuous motion. She threw her shoulder into the man's gut, grabbed him round the waist, and dumped him into an alley. The man who had spoken to Fawn in the bar had backed away and knelt beside his female friend. Once Fawn had sped past him, his eyes widened as he took note of her actual size. She was much taller and far more muscular than the Alberonian average. Fawn scowled back at the man's friend as a warning, then removed her jacket, showing her 203rd Heavy Infantry tattoo, a cartoony, muscled woman wielding a chain gun with one arm and holding a bomb in the other. The man she had thrown into the alley had recovered quickly and raised his fists. His face was warped into a brown mask of confusion when he saw that Fawn had slipped a mouth guard in between her jaws and her hands were now gloved. She began to rotate around the evenly sized man. He threw a quick jab, which her head slipped past as she shot in and pushed the man against the rusty fence behind. The sound of Fawn's fist punishing the man was sickening, like a shovel smacking the bloated head of a corpse. She could see from the first 2 punches that he had realized his mistake, but his lesson in subservience in the presence of a greater being had just begun. Fawn, being in heavy infantry, had also had extensive medical enhancements performed on her, a surgical technique known as bracing, a strengthening of the bones with a special attention paid to reinforcing those commonly used for striking, such as knuckles and elbows. Each time she landed an attack completely flush, it was like the force of a violently swung bat. The blows she laid against his body rattled through his flesh, causing extreme cases of blunt trauma. His friend attempted to break it up, but Fawn shoved the man off his feet and out of the alley with a single-handed push. Then she turned her attention back to the man that had berated her. He was a sniveling, squirming hump. Blood and mucus streamed from his mouth and ruined nose. She felt a slight pinch in her fist and saw that a tooth fragment had lodged itself into the knuckle of her middle finger. She removed it and flicked it into the darkness behind the fence. The man was shaking and trying to latch on to one of her legs, pleading. Please, please, he said. The more he begged, the angrier Fawn became. She sent several short, rude kicks into his stomach. She reached down and grabbed the man by his collar and dragged him to his feet effortlessly. His friend had returned, but she shot him a hard glare, then turned her focus back to her prey. Both of his eyes were swollen shut. His bottom lip was a split eggplant. His lips were moving slowly, but nothing more came from between them. With a single hand, she held him against the fence and repeatedly rammed her fist into his guts, as if she were trying to impale him with her arm. "Hey, you gotta stop this shit. That's enough. You gotta fucking kill him," the other man said. And how did this lesser know that it was not what she desired? Fawn ignored him and pulled a hunting knife from her boot. She exhaled a hot breath in the night air, like the smoke from the dragon's throat. Her skin had gone clammy and had a grayish tint to it. The insides of her mouth were an acrid and nauseating flavor. Her saliva glands had their overtime stubs approved, and spit ran down her chin and onto her t-shirt. A troubled youth, Fawn had spent her life seeing the faces of her demons branded on anyone who dared to challenge her. Her parents' scientific contributions to the war effort and decades of exemplary military service from her aunt kept many of Fawn's criminal charges from stacking up too high. But even this could not keep Fawn's career as an officer on track. Before she had finished her training at Spacecraft Propulsion School, she was dropped from the program and sent to the Space Fleet as a junior assistant operations officer, which said to any spaceman that she did not have a job. Refusing to acquire her space warfare pin in a timely manner, she had been ejected from the fleet, only to be dumped into the army as an enlisted soldier, though the army refused her at first, out of pure reflex, because no branch wanted to be another's trash pile. They had found use for the amount of violence and fear she could inflict upon humans and use it against the Fosses. Fawn gripped her knife tightly as the wave came over her, and she allowed herself to be drowned. Colors only a few shades apart now stood in direct contrast, the world before her actively divided into an existence of disparity and absolutes. She twirled the knife between her fingers, then crouched low next to the heaving, moaning lump that had been the character of a man moments earlier. Then she heard a shuffling of feet and was tackled before she could turn her head towards the sound. She struggled in the darkness before a familiar voice came from within the black hair. "Dearborn," Fletch had said. "Fletch?" Fawn said, coming out of her stupor. The colors of the world appeared drab now, and had melted back into one another in the darkness. "Let's go," Fletch had said, helping Fawn to her feet. The two walked past the crying man and his screaming girlfriend. Fletch had shot them a glare as she passed. Fawn recovered her jacket and her bags, and the two started on their way back to the barracks, cutting through several back streets and an old baseball field to avoid any MPs who might have been alerted because of the fight. The patchy brown grass crunched underneath their feet as they crossed the shabby outfield. The wooden boards used to make the dugout had been dried and withered by the sun. Their corners turned upwards, as if pulling away from the nails that crucified them. As they came to the infield, Fawn kicked over the dusty, battered second base, only held in place by a few links of rusty chain. "So what was it that he did to deserve that?" Fletch had said. "Why does that matter? He was a piece of shit," Fawn said, then spat into the dusty path that connected first base to second. "You should be more cautious when you lay hands on people," Fletch had said. "You think I give a fuck?" Fawn said. "It's not about you giving a fuck. It's about the heavy brass," Fletcher said. "None of this is any fair." "What?" "That those draft-dodging fucks out there are getting wasted, and my brother's missing because he was towing the line," Fawn said. "They're gonna lock you up if anybody finds out about this," Fletcher said. Fawn sighed and looked deep into the night sky. "Good. I don't even know why we bother," Fawn said. "Not like this will ever end." "What else will we do? It's not like the normal jobs exist anymore," Fletcher said. "I don't know. Anything. I just wish there was something waiting for me after this," Fawn said. "Someone," Fletcher said. "Maybe." "So what were you doing out after taps?" "It occurred to me that you would be drinking in public," Fletcher said. "What's wrong with that?" "Nothing, if you were guaranteed to be alone," Fletcher said. Fawn shuffled into the barracks, in front of the yards of the mid-watch. She made no attempt to salute the flag or the watch and trudged up the stairs with Fletcher close behind. The hallway lights were dimmed, it being the girl's bedtime, but Fawn had strong urge to give them full payback for all the time she had tried to sleep off a hangover. As Fawn stumbled into their room, she tossed Letch with the bags and collapsed onto her rack face first. "Thanks," Letchway said. "You okay?" "Dearborn bashed some fuckface in town," Fletcher said. "Oh shit, did you deserve it?" Letchway said. Fawn murmured into a pillow. Fletcher shrugged. "Most of it," Fletcher said, climbing back into her rack with her gun. "No napkins?" Chittle said. Fawn mumbled into the pillow and waved her hand. "Hey, you want me to braid you up?" Letchway said, shaking Fawn's booted foot. Fawn rolled over and groaned loudly. The crook of her elbows was covering her eyes. "I guess," Fawn said. "Don't be like that. We won't have time tomorrow, Litchway said. We won't have much time for anything tomorrow, Siddle said.